Welcome to our next episode of Working Progress. My name is Brittney Helt. I'll be your host. And today I'm really excited that we have Davina Ware with us. Welcome, Davina.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, we're very excited to have you. So Davina is a career strategist, advisor, and coach with Price Associates and The Complete Leader, which is a leadership community supporting leaders at every stage of the leadership journey. You're also certified by the International Coaching Federation, and you're the founder of Upwardly Paved Path.
Yes.
What else can you fit in that schedule? That sounds very busy.
Tap dancing, perhaps? No, I used to. It's been a while. I'm a little...
All right.
Yeah,
so
but
maybe
I want to
tap
get back
dancer
to
needs
it.
to be added to your intro
Yes.
here. Well, all jokes aside, we're here to talk about something that is kind of near and dear to my heart, and it's something that's been popping up a lot lately. I don't know if it's just the universe that's throwing it in my face, but imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So let's level set.
Yep.
What is imposter syndrome in your world? Like, how would you describe?
It's a good question because I've heard many iterations of it lately, but at its core, imposter syndrome is just feeling like a fake, feeling that you can't do what you're known and born to do, that you are somehow putting out a facade, that you're not as good as you think you are. And so it causes us to shrink. Can't do that. I don't want to be an imposter. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think, and I realize I'm asking you to look inside your crystal ball and give me one of these answers, but
Yeah.
why do you think that it's coming up so much lately?
You know, that's a great question. I think it's the influencer world that we live in. And I think everyone has a camera, and I love that we all have access to express our thoughts and expertise. But because everything is so public, we're also seeing the downfall of people, and we're starting to see businesses that aren't real. We're starting to see credentials that aren't really there. We're starting to see people don't have what we liked and clicked on for so many years.
Right.
And so I think now somehow, since we maybe have been attached to those folks, and when we see our celebrities or these influencers kind of take a tumble, I think we internalize that and say, well, they've been on this pedestal and we thought they were so great. I'm not even at that level. So I'm not even as good as I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's almost like this false sense of who you can be or who you should be. And then that comes crashing down when you see, maybe someone you've kind of put on that pedestal, and then you start the self-doubt, the self-talk.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, self-talk.
Yeah.
Man. The other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is this whole idea came about because I saw an article that you wrote for HR.com not that long ago, talking about this, and specifically talking about how it's impacting women in the workplace.
Yep.
So, woman to woman here.
Yes.
What's up with that? Why is that such a factor in working women's worlds?
One word: perfectionism.
We don't have any of that.
No, of course not.
Right.
I think because we feel pressure to be better, to work hard, and maybe there's a little bit of people pleasing in there. But women feel like we really need to prove ourselves. So you layer that on top of everything else going on. It's chasing a carrot. It's something that we'll never really achieve because it starts with being grounded in ourselves. And so when we don't have that grounding, we just keep chasing. And we're in such a fast-paced world when we have FOMO, right? We don't want to miss out.
Every day.
I know.
Every day.
I know.
And I
That's
think
so
the
hard.
internet, I'm going to sound like such a, I don't know, I'm going to sound old right now, but the internet, I feel like, has just amplified that.
Oh, yeah.
Because growing up, I didn't know that all these fun things and places and food existed.
Right.
Now, I'm following it everywhere.
It's the exposure.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we handle that? I mean, as women, and many are moms, they're running a household, they're running, their day to day in the workplace.
Yeah.
How do we juggle all of that?
The first thing I would say is to unplug from whatever the thing is that's feeding you the most. Unplug from that and get really quiet and still, because I think we've forgotten what our inner voice sounds like. That gut feeling, that instinct that we, if nothing else, that we pause and say, I don't feel right about this. I don't know why, but I don't feel right. And even if you go against it, it gave you something to think about. But when we're plugged into so many things or have such a desire to be involved with so many things, we can't hear ourselves. We can't hear that still, quiet voice that says, hey, maybe don't go over there. Hey, maybe you've got enough on your plate. Hey, maybe you should cancel your day and get some rest. We can't hear that anymore. So the first thing is to get off of the roller coaster, unplug, and just be quiet. And I have friends and colleagues who we'll do a challenge and do like a silent Sunday, right?
Ooh,
yes.
Okay, I kind of like it, and I'm kind of terrified of it, if I'm being honest.
No, and there's a good reason for that, so I hear you. It's just not having radio, TV, any media on all day. Yeah.
So is it alone time, or are you utilizing that time to spend with others who are of the same mindset?
It's both.
Okay.
Both and. Sometimes and as introverts, we need to unplug and unpeople for a day or two to recharge. But sometimes we are so tagged into the virtual that we miss this human-to-human interaction. And we know how much COVID had played a part in that. But either it's by yourself or you're just spending FaceTime with good people. And there's iron sharpening iron. There's one pouring into the other. So when we have that silent Sunday, I know when I started doing it, I wake up on Monday with less anxiety, as Mondays tend to cause us.
I can only imagine. Yes.
Or those Sunday blues that hit around
right.
5 p.m.
Sunday scaries.
Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
Yes. But I also have more ideas. My creativity is flowing when I can be quiet. And it's counterintuitive, right? Because you think, I've got so many things to do, so let me do those things. Let me block off more time. If I could just swallow the whole elephant instead of
all the things off the list.
all the things off,
right.
Then I'll feel better.
Right.
No, you have just elevated yourself to, I hate to say it like this, but it's what comes to my mind, but to the next level of crazy making. We adjust to the anxiety, and then the more and more comes our way, we continue to become a container for all of the anxiety. So if we just decrease that a little bit and we think, it gives you more power than exerting more energy, if that makes sense.
It does. It does feel a little counterintuitive. And like I said, it scares me a little bit. But I do see how, just kind of getting back to that center could really make an impact on all of that busyness.
Yes.
That then makes you anxious and can create some of that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So in your article, you talk about a few different things that I love to hear a little bit more about. You talked about building your influence as a way to kind of help combat this imposter syndrome. And yet in the same breath, we're saying the reason that we're here is because of these influencers online or in our world and in the media. So how do we counterbalance? Like, I don't think you're saying be an influencer, like a social media influencer.
Right.
But how do we grow our own influence?
It's the inside out approach as opposed to the outside in. And I don't think we appreciate ourselves enough and what makes us unique and talented. I say things like own your lane of genius, and I call myself a professional purpose launcher. I just really lean into that.
Professional purpose
yes.
launcher.
So whatever that thing is that lights you up, that makes you a little bit quirky, that maybe other people don't understand. If we play in that area, we grow authority in it. And then you link that with the skills that you have, you link that with your competencies, you link that with your behavioral style, then naturally as a result, you start to expand that influence. But we've got to get our eyes off of others and into ourselves. It's great to have good mentors and to have an example. But I don't know about you, but as a kid, I took the example of I'm supposed to be that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There
Which
was something
also,
predetermined, or there was
Yes.
a picture of it that you needed to fulfill, or
Yes. It was your favorite character. I used
Right.
to watch Family Matters, and her name is Laura Winslow, and I thought she was so cool, and I'm like, I'm going to be that. That also helped to breed the imposter syndrome, because I had
Sure.
a picture. It wasn't even real. Somebody wrote her, right? Somebody wrote that. But when I took the picture down and didn't have any picture and just built up what I thought Davina should be,
Sure.
then it helped to melt the imposter syndrome as well. Yeah.
That's so powerful, because as we go about our lives, I think that person, maybe it's not even a mentor, maybe it's just like I don't want to say an idol, that sounds icky, but
Sure.
it's that person, and that changes over time.
Right.
And then you're always striving to be that thing instead of your true self.
Right.
So how do you get okay with that? How do you get okay with the quirky and the unique, and in that loving way? As Simon Sinek says, weird is good, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How do you get okay with that?
Laugh at yourself?
Yes.
Literally laugh. And as a recovering perfectionist,
Yep.
I just normally, when you catch yourself like, oh, I should have done, I just don't even let my internal voice finish the sentence. I just start laughing, and out loud. So I know how that
Just
might
in the
sound.
middle of
Yes.
it. I love that.
But sound breaks up the noise in your head.
Yeah.
So when you laugh, it's like, oh, that's so funny. You'll get it again next time. And then I'm hearing it in my own voice. It's a habit. So after a while, your self-talk changes. You beating up on yourself, just laugh, and find other people that will laugh with you. Laugh in the mirror if you have to. I read a study once about if you're upset or you had a bad day, to take 30 seconds and force yourself to laugh. And I read that. I'm like, oh, this is so silly. But then when I did it, I started to laugh for real. So the weight of whatever was bothering me that day, or maybe I didn't get to everything on my task list, or something didn't go as planned, to laugh on purpose like that, we have to break up the noise. We have to
Changes.
break up the atmosphere externally and internally. So laugh. Yes, things can be difficult and life can be hard, but it's also short. When you laugh through it, it'll be a more pleasant experience.
I love that. I'm one of those people that laughs in awkward moments that I probably shouldn't. But you're right. When I think about that, it does change the game. It shifts the mood of the room. So even though it's awkward,
Yep.
well,
But now we can all laugh
lean
at
into
it.
the awkward, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you called yourself a recovering perfectionist, and if you do a very quick search on Google, there are all kinds of different types, if you will, of imposter syndrome, and perfectionism is like the first one that
Yeah.
pops up, right? Because
Yes.
everybody's striving for that ideal.
That's
But there's a couple others that I saw that I thought, I wonder how we look at those. So here's a couple that I found. Tell me what you think.
Okay.
There's the superhuman. So you're trying to be all the things to all the people, and you always want to do more. To me, that feels like a very real thing. As I was reading through these, I was like, is there multiples? Do I have multiple personalities inside of this imposter syndrome thing?
I'm several imposters in one. Great.
Yeah. There's natural genius, there's the soloist, and there was the expert. So there were all these different types of folks that it all feeds into this not feeling worthy, not feeling like your skills are there, not feeling as if you're enough. What are your other tips and tricks for combating some of those things?
First of all, it just blows my mind that there's layers to imposter syndrome that you could be. And I'm very happy that before my recovery that I did not know about those, because I probably would have found something.
Sent you into a
and be
spiral.
like, oh,
right.
I'm this and that and all these other things. But it's also important to have good community, because when you're in the midst of whichever type that you're stirring yourself up in, you don't see it. Like I mentioned before, you normalize it. It just becomes part of your routine. And if you have a good, trusted person who has similar values to you, to wave a hand and say, hey, did you know that you do this? Or let me repeat back to you what I just heard. That mirror, simple thing, kind of stops you in your tracks. Even if it's just, last time I said this, my good friend showed me that. Okay, so maybe now I can make a different decision, because there is a marker now to this behavior. So having a good tribe, and especially if you're trying to learn and grow, is really important to place boundaries around.
That's so hard.
It is hard, especially when you love people.
Right.
But you have to. You don't necessarily have to call them and say, I am placing a boundary with you.
Sure.
You don't have to do that, but you may need a season to take a little bit of a break to make sure that you are getting filled back up. Because right now, if you're running with the mindset of imposter syndrome, your cup is empty. So who's got enough? Who's also being poured into? At this point, the folks that I consider mentors or like my mirrors are people who also have others holding them accountable.
Right. So important.
Yeah. You can't just come to me and say, yes, I am basically all-knowing. Share with me your problems and I will give you great sage knowledge. So we can't
Darn
be that
it.
person.
I was really hoping that was going to be the outcome of this.
I know, and I've been there, but no, I need somebody holding you accountable as well. One is humility and empathy, but we're trying to work on something very specific, and if you've got all these other voices, you'll stay on this hamster wheel, and then you burn out. No, nobody needs that. We need your gifts. We need your light. So take care of yourself with boundaries and having the right people to stop you. But again, the right people, that's another key thing. We've got those folks where when keeping it real has gone wrong, it goes wrong.
Too far. Yeah.
And you might not need that in this season. So
great advice. So talk about how you find that support system. How do I know? How do I know if you're the right person to be my accountability buddy or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
What are some things to look for?
Who has been a cheerleader for you, just somewhere in life, who picked you up when you were in the midst of saying, I can't do this, I'm really terrible? Who was that voice to say, no, come on, we're not going to do that today? And reach back out to the person, even if it's been 5 years. They'll be happy to hear from you.
Right.
And say, you really had an impact on my life, and I need a little support. If nothing else, can you stand with me so that I don't have negative self-talk?
I'm also thinking of people that kind of give it to you straight. I mean, as you said, that can go too far. But those people that kind of lovingly say, hey, do you really think that was the right way to handle that situation?
Yes.
Sometimes it's tough in the moment, but that might be a good support system for...
Oh, yeah. But again, I think you have to qualify those people, because I have people who have told me very blatant things and I never get offended because, one, they love me. And I know you're speaking to me in love, and you're not speaking to me out of annoyance. You're not speaking to me out of disgust, but you're speaking to me very staunchly out of love. And that goes back to the boundaries. I don't think we should let everybody pour into us. But yes, let's give it a little flavor. Let's change the variety. Let's have the person that's going to woo you. But then let's also have the person that says, this is what it is. You are way off track and you're doing it on purpose. Either you're going to pick road A or road B. If you pick road B, it will ruin your life. Have a nice day. And I had a mentor say that to me before. She said, I'm going to get off the phone now and let you sit with that. But because she's one that I know loves me, I'm like, oh, I really need to pay attention to what she's saying.
Sure.
And it changed my route, but I wasn't offended. But I've had other people, and part of it is being super empathic, where all I could hear was the emotion. All I could hear was the annoyance. All I could hear was kind of you sitting high and looking low. So I couldn't hear the advice packaged in it. So we have to qualify who those people are in our village that's going to help us to walk straight.
Good advice. Good advice. So can I go back to something you said a little bit ago? You were talking about finding your gifts, knowing what those are, finding that light inside of you. You're not talking about like a little Tiffany's box, right?
No.
What kind of gifts are we talking about, and how do you find that in yourself? And how do you? I'm going, okay. Well, how do I help somebody else? Because if I want this support system around me to help with this imposter syndrome, right? Because as you grow in your career and you change, it's not gonna. To me, it's not gonna just magically go away one day. Right?
Right.
It's going to evolve. Your imposter syndrome will evolve.
Yes.
So how do you find those gifts, and how do you help someone else with that?
I think the first thing is to be curious.
I love that.
Be really curious. Go to a pottery making class, or go to, what are you call those things? Those little geraniums?
Oh, the succulents.
Yes.
Yes.
Go to that class.
Yeah.
Start plugging your fingers in different things that are outside of your routine. Because sometimes our routine, and I like a little sense of routine, but it blinds us. So it shuts off sense of creativity in your mind. But if you just get out and say, I'm going to take a karate class. I'm going to learn how to bake cannolis. But I feel like you've got to throw the ball far so that you can see what else is on the path. Friends, again, people that have known you and walked with you, they see things that you don't. And I remember 15 years ago, I was with my sorority sisters, and we were kind of at a party. And one of them, she was on the stairs, and I didn't talk to her often at all. And she turned around at me. She looked over her shoulder, and she said, "You have the gift of gab." And it was so random that I paid attention to it. So you get nuggets from other people.
You have to pick them up, though, right?
You do
gotta
have to pick them up. And because it was her, against someone who I don't communicate with a lot, I said I need to pick up this ball and do something with it. But also, we know a little bit. We may not have the full view, but we know. I remember when I was, 10 years old, and I played soccer, and I really loved this part about it. But as adults, we shed the playfulness about ourselves, which means we also might shed the clues to the gifts that we were supposed to expand. So go back to when you were a kid. Were you excited about going to the movies? Yes, you can make a career out of that. Or were you excited I was a really shy kid. I'd be the kid in the corner like, let me know when this is over with.
I just don't even believe that.
I know, isn't that crazy? But when someone gave me a prompt to speak, I'm like, oh, I can do this. But it took 15 years later for someone to bring that around back to me. But go back to those moments of, oh, you have good penmanship. It's something.
Right.
To start somewhere, but we have to be curious. We have to experiment and think outside of the box.
And that gets harder as an adult, but
Yes.
I think it's a good exercise to kind of allow ourselves to do that. A lot of what we've talked about so far has been, I guess it could play in both courts, but it feels a little more personal as opposed to the professional side. So, I guess you can take some of the feedback from like managers or from, different folks along the way, along the path of, those professional skills that people say, oh, you're doing that great. Or if you go take a class or you go do this other thing. What are some ways that we can help identify some of those professional gifts, if you will, or how do you make that transition from the personal side, like that great penmanship, or to the professional side?
I actually see them as one and the same.
Really?
Because whatever your gift is, you use it anywhere. You don't just turn it off when you're at work. But when you're aware of it, you get to use it at work. And that's one really great thing I love about being at Price, because it takes all of my gifts, it takes all of my quirks, and it puts it to work. And so when you are authentically yourself, then you have managers and people who want to support that, or have a candid conversation of, hey, I really like public speaking. How can I add that into what I'm doing? Or I think it could benefit you in this way or that way. But your authentic self invites people to come along for the ride. But I really think that your gifts and whatever you were created on this earth to do, that you were supposed to do them also at work. And so we separate the two, which is why we have folks who are miserable at work. But if you don't, it just becomes who you are naturally. But that way, now you can get training for it. You can get certifications for it. You can get practice on it. You can ask for projects that will help to sharpen this gift.
Right.
But you've got to be authentic in order to express it, or have somebody to hold you accountable.
Right.
Or ask for another way to be curious. Ask your manager, I'm interested in software. Is there a project that you have that I can help with that? You can be curious at work.
I love that. And I could see it playing out in all kinds of different ways at work. Okay, not to be sad, but what if somebody's listening or watching and they're saying, I don't have that balance. I am this person at home and in my personal life, and I am this person at work. How do you start those conversations with a manager or a leader or someone in the workplace?
It takes some courage to do, but I think when I hear that as a person in like the career and workplace strategy space, it just makes me sad to compartmentalize in such way, because you would have a much richer experience if you didn't. So, but you've got to speak up. And if nothing, don't go in your boss's office and say, hey, I need to work on IT. Thanks. Walk away.
That's probably not going to work well.
Not gonna work.
Yeah.
But just ask questions. How can I get involved in X, Y, and Z? Or can I partner with you as my manager, because I really want to grow in this space, and then contribute that back to the company? That's what they want to hear. A really, really good manager and company will help you grow no matter what.
Sure.
But if there's a way you can tie that back to your role and say, this is going to allow me to start giving some KPIs and giving some outcomes and results, then a good manager will be happy to help you to achieve that. But we've got to be confident and advocate for ourselves. Advocate for your gift. You have it for a reason. It's not supposed to be buried,
Right. So don't be quiet.
Nope.
Be brave. Be proactive. And go have those conversations.
Yes.
So time is flying.
It is.
And we're coming up on our last few moments here. So what's the one thing? I know that everyone hates this question, because it's like, how do you distill all this information into one little thought? But if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, this is me, imposter syndrome, didn't know what it was called, but now I know what it is, I'm there. How do they, what's the one thing you want them to take away from this conversation?
Give yourself grace. You deserve it. You don't have to be a superhero. You are not equipped to save all the people, to be in multiple places at once, to get it right every single time. You are literally not genetically equipped to do that. So give yourself some grace, laugh a little bit, and advocate for your gifts.
Great advice. And I think it's doable. It's nothing too off the wall.
No. It might take some practice, but...
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Davina, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I think this is such an important topic.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe some folks that are listening will just have a little more courage to give themselves some grace and laugh a little bit. Laughing's great.
Laughing is so good for your soul. So
I concur. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Working Progress. We hope to see you next time.